that does it. And
Well, good morning. We have for today at the Republican Professor, Miss Dr. Shannon Holzer at Houston Baptist University has agreed to join us. Welcome, Shannon. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Shannon and I go way back. I've been married for a quarter century, and I've known Shannon even longer than that. And I'm only 27, so I met you when I was 2. You were a Bible study leader.
That's right.
At Hope Chapel, Kaneohe.
Yeah.
Shannon had he had this great, and I don't say this very often, but he had a ponytail, and he played the guitar, and he looked like a surfer dude, and he had been stationed at Marine Corps Base Kaneohe. I actually went to college on that Marine Corps station. One of the classes I took was state and federal government, which I later got a Ph.D. in. It's kind of funny. Anyway,
called professor.
I don't remember his name, but I remember him, but I just don't remember his name. I have the syllabus somewhere. I'm still traumatized by the Second Amendment section that we had. That was before Heller, and the textbook was a disaster. It was a freaking disaster. But anyway, Shannon served in the United States Marine Corps. Thank you for your service, brother. He's been a pastor. He has, I don't know how many degrees. He's got a Ph.D. from Baylor University, from the Church State Institute, which is just the top in the nation. It's the top in the world, probably, in church state studies. He's got a cool PhD, religion, politics, and society, I believe it is, right? And he had a bunch of philosophers, very famous philosophers on his committee. So he's got a background of philosophy. He's taught philosophy for a long time. He taught in the K through 12 system in crazy California. And now he's holding it down at Houston Baptist University. So welcome.
Thanks for having me again. Yeah, that was your suggestion, if I recall. I was making a decision. One of my professors wanted me to go into entertainment law after my degree at Talbot. And then I was considering all these different PhD programs like Purdue, and I was thinking about going to Florida State, and I was going to learn go there. That would have been pretty fun too. And I was just going to go straight philosophy. And then you said, look, you got to see this thing, this guy, Francis Beckwith, which we had already known. You're like, you got to go learn under this guy at the Dawson Institute for Church State Studies at Baylor. And I was like, well, I got family in Baylor. And I think you used the word sexy to describe the degree. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of sexy. I don't know, man. It's pretty cool looking. And so
sounds like something I would have said.
Yeah, for sure. And so Francis Beckwith just happened to come into town, and he kind of talked to me. We sat down and had coffee, and he says, yeah, it's kind of a political philosophy degree. You're into that stuff. And JP Moreland was like, dude, I think that's your thing. And I said, yeah, I think that's my thing. So I ended up moved to Waco, and then I came back a couple of years, like you said, and I did teach some K through 12 when I was ABD. And then I just finally went back and finished my dissertation, and here I am.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I didn't realize there was so much connectivity between you two before we all got to Talbot. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, before. Okay, keep going. You can tell it, Luke.
Well, I'm probably not going to tell the same story that you were going to tell, but I was going to say that Shannon is probably responsible for me for 4 of the degrees that I have. 2 undergrad, because we went to the same little Baptist college in Hawaii, Wayland Baptist University.
Yeah.
And you were the only one I knew that was going there at the time from high school. And then I later knew somebody at work that was going there, and then I checked it out, and it was good. It was actually really quality education. It was a really balanced quality education. And
to this day, I still use a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
And
it was
greatly from it.
Yeah, all over the island. Took classes, like I said, on the Marine Corps Station, Hickam Air Force Base. I was living at the time at Wheeler Army Airfield in the Navy barracks. Don't try to figure this out,
Yeah.
but it's across from Schofield Barracks, which is on the film From Here to Eternity, if you know old films. I was asking my wife, don't say her name, by the way, but I was asking my wife, do you know, when we were watching From Here to Eternity, I said, do you recognize that base? And she said, the Schofield Barracks. And I said, yeah, that trained you well, girl. I trained you well. Now get back in the kitchen. No, but what story were you going to say?
Well, it wasn't as good as that one. No, it was funny because, you're right. It goes both ways. You're like, I'm responsible for your degrees. Well, in the same vein, you're responsible for several of the turns I took. So before Luke was ever getting an undergrad, he was already looking into seminary degrees. And he had all these degrees. And I'm looking at, I remember it was like Northeastern, like, oh, it's in the research triangle. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds cool too. And you had just these stacks of course catalogs from them, from all these seminaries. And you had this one from Talbot. And you're like, this is where your boy goes. And he was referring to William Lane Craig, because I was into, watching all these debates on VHS tapes.
That's right.
William Lane Craig VHS on VHS, and I had his book Reasonable Faith, and I was like, that guy's cool. And you're like, oh, and this guy Moreland's there, and he introduced me to Scaling the Secular City. And so from there, I was like, I can't afford that, because I remember Luke said, yeah, the students drive better cars than the professors do. Anyway, so J.P. Moreland actually was on the island. He used to teach a course at this school called the Graduate
International
Graduate.
Yeah.
School.
It was actually at our church. It was actually at our church. Yeah. We went to International Baptist Church. It was upstairs.
Yeah, that's right. And so he was in town. He'd give a 2-week course on apologetics, and I snuck in, and I didn't pay. I just
Yeah.
And I talked to JP afterwards. I said, hey JP, I want to go, but man, it's just seems so expensive. And he said 2 words. He said, just go. And that was good enough.
Sounds like something you'd say.
Yeah. He said, just go. And I said, okay, I'll go. And so I packed up, sold everything I had, and moved out to California. And this was because Luke had that, course catalog. I swear I got one myself, and I had every course already circled and books, bought before I even was accepted there. And I got there. And so if it weren't for Luke, I wouldn't have gone to Talbot, and I wouldn't have gone to Baylor probably either. I probably would have gone to Florida State.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. And I got to go to Wayland, so I'll take credit for that. I got a T-shirt out of that. I used to get a T-shirt for everybody I got, in. Wayland Baptist T-shirt. They're like 20 T-shirts.
They have cool T-shirts now. You should get one.
Oh yeah.
They have the cool. Yeah, it's got the islands on it, and it's cool. And they have a cool. I'm not drinking out of it, but they have a cool. Mug. I should have drank out of that mug this morning. What the hell am I doing? I was drinking out of it yesterday. Anyway, they have the same logo on there with the islands and some Hawaiian stuff. But so now you're at Houston Baptist, and tell us about the kind of courses you teach there.
Right now I'm in the government department, and or the poli sci. We just changed names. Figured it'd be better to attract students. But I also teach, over the last 15 years, I've primarily taught philosophy.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I've primarily taught philosophy. I taught for a while at McLennan Community College, taught their philosophy courses and their courses on Christian history and scripture.
That's in Waco, right?
That's in Waco. And I taught logic, and I taught, intro to philosophy and ethics. So I had about, a great set of, courses there, great students. I taught there for a long time. Then I moved, taught world history at at Glendale High School, history, politics, and economics. That was fun.
There's not a lot of Calvinists there. It's mostly Armenians, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
3 seminary people can get that, and then if you don't know LA, you're just not going to get it. So
yeah, you got to know LA, and you got to know theology for that.
You got to know some basic geography.
Yeah, yeah. So we after that I came back, and I had to start over, and I started working in Houston, doing the adjunct thing, and I've worked at University of St. Thomas teaching philosophy, and so I taught ancient, medieval, and modern.
Have you ever just sat down and one day and just counted the number of college courses you've taught?
No, I mean the number of
most people don't.
Section the course titles, yeah, because it's listed on. But this
I mean the semester courses.
Yeah, and
every time every cohort of student. Yeah.
Well, the irony is, as a full-time professor, I teach less classes now, and make more money than when I taught as an adjunct. I could teach.
That's a Christian flip off, because
I know
that's how Jesus did it.
I mean, it's horrible, man. And
yeah,
let me tell you something. At least, I'll say at least in California, the adjuncts make a little more money, but
that's true.
In Texas, they are they are taking advantage really badly.
It's criminal.
The private schools are it is. The public ones are, so like Lone Star and HCC, horrible. However, the HBU is much better. McLennan Community College is great. I mean, I'm not saying it's great, but you got paid a decent.
You were full time there for a while, right?
For a while, yeah. But
I remember going in your office and being all ooh ah. Well, hey, let's transition a little bit to any topic that you want, and you bring it up.
Well, we were talking about it, and we thought about talking about the contemporary student versus the students we originally encountered when we started this gig.
Yeah.
And how they, our experiences with them now versus our experiences with them then.
Mm-hmm.
And has there been a change?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they look like now? And
mm-hmm.
I mean, going back to your question a few minutes ago, have you ever counted the number of courses you've taught? No, but I could tell you the student count is in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go, I have a data set here of thousands of students spread out over years.
And geographically.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have both four-year university students, and I have community college students.
Yeah.
And I noticed it, and I have taught nighttime students versus daytime students, upper level courses versus lower level courses.
Yep. Private versus public.
And so
rural versus urban.
Rural versus urban for sure.
Yeah.
Diverse versus monolithic or homogenous, call it. Yeah. And so I get different stories. The classes themselves, some classes are better than others, and I have
always.
That's why. Always. And by
same section, same exact course, same semester, different day, and you could have night and day
students.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And is it dependent on you or on them? I mean, I know if the problems are the same with every class over the years, the only thing that hasn't changed is me. It's the same professor, right? Unless I change, ways I do things. But I mean, that's one variable.
Let me jump in there. I have counted the number of courses that I have taught.
Yes.
185. at 11 schools, at 11 colleges, universities, community college, big state universities, private Christian colleges, and then on the private Christian colleges, from allegedly conservative, whatever that means, to allegedly liberal, whatever that means. Liberal just
Yes.
typically means it's illiberal.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yes.
And I've and in poor areas and in very rich areas. I've taught in Malibu,
Yeah.
and I've taught in West Los Angeles, which are fairly upscale areas. And then I've taught in Gangland, USA, where I've got homies coming in just out of jail wanting me to sign stuff for the judge, you know. Yeah. And so I have a fairly rich data set just in terms of Southern California.
Absolutely.
And I've just discovered that, you know, it's not, I think professors and teachers take too much on about the responsibility. It's on the student. It's on the student and the parents too, right? It's a two-way street. And once I stopped blaming myself for every little thing that went wrong, I was not only happier, but I also could hold the students' feet to the fire better, and I stopped inflating grades as much. And I noticed that's really what I started noticing the system. The system is designed to inflate grades because of the incentive structure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so tell me about your new students, like versus the old. What do you notice?
Well, let me tell you before that, my experience as a student versus a professor.
Yeah.
I, as a student, would get grades.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't like the grade, my first reaction was, I need to get better. I need to work on this. I took it, it hit me as the person being responsible for
what do I need to fix?
Right. This mark that I don't like. Why am I getting this exactly?
Curtis is an expert at that. Curtis took how many times did you take logic at Biola with Chalky?
Yeah, I took logic 3 times.
Chalky.
All with Chalky.
And I was
I
got a D, that class.
I got a D and then a C and then an A.
Nice.
I was like, okay, I got it. I finally got this. Now I can move on to the next thing.
But isn't that lovely, his attitude, Curtis's attitude? He didn't blame Chalky.
Oh, no, it was never his fault.
It was like, okay, what do I need? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to
in fact, in my case, I would say Chalky was my inspiration. I think Chalky, if any one man inspired me and made me rise, it was the professor that I couldn't measure up to. And I just wanted to get better and better and better. And it was my, like you're saying, Shannon, it was my problem. I took that responsibility.
Here's a great example. I handed in the same paper as an undergrad to 2 different professors. So I asked permission to do it. They allowed me to do it. One of them gave me a B on it. The thing had red marks all over it. Okay. The other one had an A on it and said, nice job. Which one do you think I valued more?
Yeah,
well, the more valuable one was the B.
Yeah.
Because it was an accurate reflection of my work. The other one, if I just left it took it and went, yay, an A, I wouldn't have improved. I had nothing to improve. And that's not good.
Was that graduate or undergrad?
Undergrad. That was Dr. Howell who gave me the B. And
sounds like
Dr.
him.
Yeah. And I mean,
I love Dr. Howell. I loved him. He was so awesome.
That was my experience with
David
Dr. Chalky. That was my experience with him. The best I ever got for a long time was a B+. That was it.
He was my boss. I never took a class from him, but I had to lecture for him, and I sat in on his classes. I graded his final exams. Yeah. And I talked to a lot of the students, and Chalky is truly a distinguished professor.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not on his title, but he is a true distinguished professor.
Is he still Biola?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm almost certain
that title.
Well, he flies under the radar in terms of
He
promoting himself.
takes
He doesn't promote himself.
unrefined material and turns out an excellent academic product.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to hear. So,
yeah.
Well, okay. So how many of your students do that? How many of your students do that?
See, that's where I was going to make. I was going to make the contrast with the current model today. Is there's this attitude about education in general as we've reduced it from a place of education to a place of vocational training, such as we're there to get you. We've reduced it to a trade school. So if you're not putting out people who are, nursing is the big trade right now that all the schools are trying to pump out. And so inevitably, I always get somebody trying to get in the nursing program. They come up and they're always telling me, well, I need to get this grade to get into the nursing program. So I'm like, well, of course, you need to get the grade. So what do you do to get? The question isn't whether you need to get the grade. The question is, what do you do to get the grade? What does the grade represent? The grade should represent greatness. And what you're asking me is to give you something that should represent greatness.
Yeah.
As though it's just some bureaucratic hoop you have to jump through.
Like you have a rubric, right? And there's like, accuracy, thoroughness, precision, citation, adequacy, citation, stuff like that. And then on the end of it is, do you need to get into a nursing program? I'm sorry, I forgot to check that box because that's an automatic A. That's automatic. Not only is an A, it's an A plus. I have a recommendation already written for you. I just have to push print.
Right.
And sign it.
And that's been as the trend has gone to putting people into the vocational model of the education system and saying they need to get a certain grade level. Well, that inflates grades. It puts a lot of pressure on the professor.
How does it put pressure on the professor? Because that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand what it's like to be a professor.
Well, there's two reasons. Well, there's three reasons. Mm-hmm. One, you want to see your students succeed. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so there's a sense of it's hard to give them a D, an F, or something like that, or something. Now it's even harder to give them a C. Two, the pressure from the student tugging at your heartstrings, or I'm not going to get into the program, or this, those types of things. But the third thing is administratively, when the administration, you know that all your peers are given the same marks, and then that they're going to go, well, why is this guy? Why are all his students only getting B's and C's? What's the problem with this? When all the other students get A's and B's and mostly A's in this class,
must be your fault.
It must be, because it's not the students getting accurately assessed. It's you're either making it too hard, you're grading too hard, or they're not learning the exact same material that they're learning in the other class. So you're not teaching them correctly, so that they can pass the same.
We need to have a more closer microscope on you now. You must be something. That's what always killed me.
Nobody even has to say it. Nobody has to say it.
Well, it comes out. If you challenge it, it will come out. If you challenge it, and you'll see what happens. There is a lot of people don't understand the way the structure is of the university and schools. The way it used to be back when my family founded Harvard and Yale, like, the Mathers, and I'm just keeping track of time. So every 10 minutes, my alarm goes off. So we're now in between 20 and 30 minutes now. Okay. So they didn't have a huge administration. They had teachers. They had the president of Harvard. Increase Mather was a president of Harvard when Cotton was a student there at 11 years old, by the way, studying Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, and logic and rhetoric at 11 years old. Of course, he didn't have an iPad. So, but they didn't have a dean or anything like that. So now there's a cadre of six-figure bureaucrats. They don't teach. What do? They sit around waiting for complaints. And then when a complaint comes, then they focus and channel their energy on faculty that don't make near that much and are just trying, and faculty that oftentimes have no idea, am I going to have a job next semester? I've worked for 11 years to have this training to be able to impart this material that I'm very excited about and I've given my life to.
Right.
And by the way, my student can't put down his damn phone for 45 minutes
right
in the classroom.
Yes.
And they want to, they're complaining they got a B- instead of a C+.
That's correct. Yes.
That's really what we're talking about. That's really what we're talking about. So you have a 6-figure health insured person that's job is to just kind of, peer in, and it can be very intimidating even to come under the gaze of such an intimidating bureaucracy, right?
Now, here's something interesting. I don't, with this is both my experience. I've had different experiences, but some of the schools are very good about just letting you do your job, right? And you don't,
depends on the people. Depends on the people there at that time.
Absolutely. But then you go to certain other schools,
and
they're just like looking right over you, and they want to micromanage what you. So
that's right.
I think where I'm at right now, it's a very, very nice and hands off, but
praise God.
Yeah,
it's good for the students. It's actually good for the students. Anything that causes the students to work harder is good for the students.
Yeah.
That's the same thing is happening in the military. Are you keeping up with what's happening in the Marines?
Oh my gosh.
Have you kept up with what's happening in the Marines?
Oh yes.
I had a beer with this guy. He's going to be a Marine recruiter. He's a sergeant. This is Curtis. I think you were there. We had a beer with him. I could not believe what he was telling me about the Marine Corps. They have now a hard time yelling at the people. There's now people that help the recruit get.
There's a complaint process that you can walk through with your drill, to complain about your drill sergeant.
I don't even want to hear this. This is horrible. So I'm
sorry. Sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up, but I apologize.
Yeah. That hurts my feelings.
You should file a complaint.
What grade would you? What grade would you give me for this?
I'd be like, I tell you what, I'd be like,
it better not be a freaking B-.
Somebody better yell at me right now, not in my
and then
Marine.
you throw in the pronoun crap. You throw in all the other political correctness stuff that has nothing to do with academic excellence. And then it just complicates everything. It's like, you did not do the reading and you're saying that I didn't call you your pronoun. And then now we all know it's because you didn't do the reading. That's really what it is. They're just looking for any little thing to get what they want. And they, of course, oftentimes, this is really what it is. I prefer simple explanations if they account for the most data. And so that's why I call it the Republican professor. I say, yeah, you're pissed that the Republicans might win. You're a Democrat. And that's really the simple explanation. That's a simple explanation. And that's, a lot of the Republican professors I've known, they get all of a sudden investigated for views they have about a certain virus, or they didn't use a pronoun, or they have academic excellence, and they're demanding academic excellence from the student. And from the Democrat people that are in charge, there's nothing about academic excellence in anything they're writing. More and more increasingly, there's nothing about academic excellence on the website. It's all there's tons of other stuff on the website.
Activism.
Can't understand activism. There's nothing about academic excellence.
So here's a lot there. I think what is going on in education is this rise of classes such as gender studies, cultural, studies, ethnic studies. And when you look at the
diversity and inclusion,
when you look, Jordan Peterson calls it die.
Yes. And when you look at the syllabus, in which I have looked at the syllabi on these, you actually it's like a dance class. You can't just take these courses and learn what they're teaching, understand a different viewpoint. To take these classes, much like a dance class, to take a dance class, one must dance a dance class, right? If you're in a wrestling class, pretend you don't just learn wrestling from watching it. You have to wrestle to wrestle, right? And in the same way, they take these diversity and inclusion class, these ethnic studies. you must actually be an activist to pass these classes. And of course, you must be an activist in the right way. And so
for the
they're
Democratic
not
Party.
learning. Yeah, that's correct. They're not learning any. It's a way they use the university system.
Yeah.
To get these students to be active for the professor's worldview.
Yeah. You're not going.
That's a really good point.
You're not doing stuff for the NRA.
And by the way,
you're not protesting abortion clinics.
That's correct. Yes, and if you were, that you would fail the class. And I think one of the cancers that is this is a cancer on college campuses, and this is what happens when you take a conservative school. You could see what's going to start happening as soon as you start getting somebody who's sentimental towards this kind of these types of courses, these types of worldviews. Then they go, we should have these types of classes on campus. They're just classes on.
It's human nature. I think people want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel like I'm a good person. I got that from Dallas Willard. Dallas Willard says it is an enormous motivation for people to feel like they're a good person.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you can explain almost everything you're saying by that observation that people have an overwhelming desire to feel good about themselves. I'm a good person.
Right.
And
the flip side of that coin is the phrase that we've heard before that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Well, this is just an interesting political phenomenology that, by the way, this is my opinion, and it doesn't necessarily reflect any of the podcasts that I run, like the Republican Professor. Just want you to know, so in case I get fired from my own podcast.
Oh, I see. Yes.
But my observation is that democratic activism makes people feel good about themselves more readily than Republican activism, because Democrats have mastered the manipulation of moral reasoning ensconced in politics, in American politics.
Right.
I think Republicans are a little bit better at keeping those categories not they overlap, but they're not exactly the same category.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. Well, here's kind of something on a side note that maybe it's the conversation reminds me of this kind of people love to feel good about themselves, and it's kind of like actors, they think they're very self-important people. And I was watching Ricky Gervais's hosting of the Golden Globes, where he just mocks.
That's my favorite.
As he says, that we all know actors are the most important people in the world, and we're just so happy to see all these beautiful people and the good work that's being done by American plastic surgeons.
Important work. Pretending to be somebody else is very important.
Like when Meryl Streep had the audacity to say, what would you watch if it weren't for us?
Real life.
Yeah.
Well, I can always tell they're acting. I tell people, I sometimes I show films and my students, and I always say I can tell they're acting. I pause it right away. See, he's not looking at the camera. How the F do you think I see you? There's a camera there, obviously. I'm not God. I'm not omniscient. I'm not omnipotent. So, and then they, see, he's still not looking at the camera. And where's this music coming from? What the hell? I mean, you're riding on the plane. Kevin Costner is riding on the plane. He's looking. What the wolf has music. Where'd the music come from? I've walked on the planes many times. I've never heard music like that.
Yes, that's right. You don't have
bullshit. I walked out of Finding Nemo because fish don't talk.
You've heard about
I can tell they're acting.
You've heard about those home entertainment systems that you can set up now, where when you walk into a room, you can have your own theme background music, like as you make your entrance.
I did that Finding Nemo. I did that Finding Nemo joke too in a class at Loyola Marymount University. Maybe I should change the names of these. Ignatius Joseph Mount University. Anyway, it was in West Los Angeles, And I made that comment about Finding Nemo, and Ben Lasseter was a student in my class, and he's a son of John Lasseter, the founder of Pixar and the director and writer of the movie. He laughed, and his parents sent me a bottle of wine for Christmas that year. Apparently they thought it was funny too. I did it a lot longer. I did it probably inappropriately long. The joke, I was like,
Right.
if you've ever talked underwater, that's not what it sounds like. First of all,
Yeah.
and I went on. I had no idea who this kid was, by the way.
That's
That is
Well,
so funny.
So Shannon, do you have any ideas about how is there a way back to academic excellence, or are we just stuck where we are, just trying to claw our way to the next paycheck? What are you pessimistic? Are you optimistic, or a mix?
Yeah, in the short term, I'm pessimistic. In the short term, I just think the political powers will continue funding bad programs. People will continue going to these programs. But the real concern is those programs, really, it's because we can avoid those programs. We can sit there and preach all day that you're not going to get a job in feminist studies. But what we'll see is, Curtis says, talk about sensitivity training. There's an emerging market in corporations for people who are, in charge of sensitivity and diversity, this stuff, and where
not sensitivity to the Republicans, though.
No, we're talking.
That's what I mean. Is that it's always a partial description. It's a partial description.
Enforcement of
sensitivity to the Democratic Party. That's what it is.
And you and I had a conversation back in 2000 in the parking lot at Biola University. It was before I was leaving. It was late at night. I forget why we were in the parking lot at Biola. It was probably a class or something we took. And I was telling you there's a real problem with Marxism in America. And you went, man, you're really concerned about this. And I said, you wait and see, man. They're teaching this stuff today, and we're going to start seeing it in politics tomorrow. I started having my students years ago, and I'm talking 15 years ago, compare and contrast the American Communist Party USA's website with the DNC's website.
That's good.
And I asked them, can you see a difference? And they'd come back and they go, oh, yeah, we can see a little difference. And they'd point out something.
A little difference. Wow.
But they would show, man, it's really similar. And sorry if and then they, as time has gone on over the last 15 years, there is not only no difference, there's just a melding of the two. The Democratic Party nowadays is literally Communist Party USA. I mean, to include Bernie Sanders, to include Sandra Cortez, to include, those, who are in the quote squad, and they're all Marxists. They're there 15 years later, and they're loud and proud calling themselves socialists. They have no problem doing it. And can it be changed? Yes.
Yeah.
How's the how is in the, and it's a big ship. It's a big ship. So it steers very slowly. It didn't take a day to turn America into what it is today. And it won't take a day to turn it back to where it should be.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure. I don't know if you guys, did either of you go to the Acton Institutes that they did back in the 90s?
I heard about them. I never got a chance to go.
There was one where I went, and the Prime Minister of Estonia, the first Prime Minister of Estonia after the fall of the Soviet Union, Mart Laar, spoke. And at that time, this was like, I think 98, maybe 99, somewhere around there. And he said that there's 4 stages to the development of communism, and that America is currently in stage 3.
Yes.
And that was at that time. And he said a lot of people, he gets a lot of pushback from that at the time. He got a lot of pushback, and I think he was dead on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've heard that too.
Well, the issue with the leftward drift is an issue of the human heart, and it goes back to Genesis 3. It goes back to Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
The first lefty was Satan. That's not my and the political philosophers have said this for a long time. Biblically literate. This is not my thought. I mean, I read it somewhere. But yeah, it's the you could have perfection. You could have, and this is the wonderful thing about being biblically literate, is you could have perfection and then find a flaw in it, some flaw, find flaw, and the flaw is it's not good enough. It doesn't meet now a new standard of perfection, which is I'm not God. Oh, I didn't have that standard before. I was just a human being, and the reality is I'm just a human. I'm just creature. And then the little thought of, oh, but you should be the creator. What are you talking about?
Right.
You should have. It should be more perfect.
Different. Yeah.
But it's not really more perfect. It's not based in reality. This new fake standard. And then there's destruction.
I think the left majors in all the vices. I mean, jealousy is one of them. I mean, and you look at it and you go, we got to take from the haves so we can give it to the have-nots, and you pretend that is somehow a virtue to take from those who have created and to give to those who have not, to those who have earned something, to those who have not earned something, and somehow you feel like you were somehow justified in doing so, and you're a hero for doing so. You've turned a vice into a virtue. Jealousy, and then you can go all the way down the table of vices, from pride to the defense of wrath, burning down cities, in the name of your favorite cause. And then when somebody has a peaceful protest,
mostly peaceful,
but like imagine the right, they go out there and they do their best to behave. They put all their cups in the trash cans as they leave, and now these are insurrectionists, and
sure,
yeah,
the Lawfare podcast was talking about weaponizing drones, how average everyday people could weaponize drones. Back in 2012 they were talking about this, and and you have the most heavily armed political party in probably history, right? And what they're doing on a certain day is getting a bit rowdy, and now that's an insurrection. It's like, no, I think it would have looked differently if it was really an insurrection. You don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, but the federal courthouse in Portland is totally bombed and occupied, and that's just, it's just a protest.
Mostly peaceful. Yeah.
Mostly peaceful. Yeah. The other one isn't even mostly, violent. It's, absolutely without a doubt, every last grandma there is an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
They just also happen to, be quite forgetful and left all their guns at home.
Right.
Right. We've got 500,000 people there, and I tell people, man, that's the worst insurrection ever led.
I will say that Republicans aren't the best at protesting. I mean, we don't have all the practice that the Democrats and socialists do. So, you get them all together and we're like, what do we do? Is this what we're supposed to do? Like, well, I guess that didn't really work out that well. I mean, we need to practice more. I guess we're not, we thought we did it right. And then, now we're, in jail now for a long time instead of just, 12 hours like Kamala Harris has bailed out people.
Yeah, that's right. She's bailing them out. And then, Republicans just let our own rot in jail,
I know. It's crazy.
We could use a little more practice. Yeah. So we'll find some more things to protest.
Shannon, I want to have you on as much as possible talking about all the stuff you're an expert in, because I know you're an expert in tons of stuff, but it's always interesting to hear you talk about students. And I know got to be careful, because you have current students and you don't want people going, are you talking about me? And
Oh yeah.
then you have to say, yeah, actually I was.
Yeah. But the funny thing about that is you could describe probably any one type of I just started listing off characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow somebody's going to personalize that and go, that's me. Yeah, he must be talking about. I've had thousands of students over my life. And the irony is, if I'm listing off, this is how it hits insecurities. If I'm listing off certain virtues, the student was on time, a beautiful person, lovely to be around, inquisitive, punctual, nobody's going to think a thing. You go, this person had a scowl on their face one day, and all of a sudden you get 10 complaints. This guy's talking about me because people are so insecure. We're so focused in on, what's wrong with us and afraid that others notice it too. We've become quite narcissistic in that we've pierced through people's facades,
It doesn't take much.
God, they see me as I am. Oh no. We're not stroking their ego. We're actually revealing it.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're working on academically.
Academically, I've got a couple things. I just published a highly controversial article that will be coming out soon in Trinity Law Review, and it's it's natural law, natural rights, and it's a sequel from Natural Law, Natural Rights, and Same-Sex Marriage. Do same-sex couples have a right to be married? And this one's a sequel, Natural Law, Natural Rights, and Abortion. Do women have a natural right to an abortion? And then I've just connected it to the Texas heartbeat law.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Cutting edge.
Yeah, you got the general argument up front, and then I throw the case right there at the end of it. And so that should be coming out in short order, which reminds me, I should probably sign that contract so that they can do that. So that's one thing. The other thing, I'm, as you know, and you're part of it, I'm editing a 2-volume set on religion. It's a handbook for Palgrave. It's the Palgrave Handbook of Religion and State. It used to be Church and State because there is more than one world religion. I broadened the thing out to include every country in the world.
Oh no.
Almost, man. It's crazy. I've got 72 chapters in it right now. And I asked Robert Audi several years ago. Robert Audi, he edited the Cambridge or Oxford. Let me see.
Cambridge.
It's Cambridge. It's right behind you. It's that yellow one.
Yeah, the Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy.
Yep.
Yeah. And I asked him, I said, what was that like? And he said, oh man, don't ever do that. And I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna go do that.
You're doing that now.
So I go and I get the bright idea. I'm gonna go edit a
Shannon, there might be people that are watching this that have no idea about the contract, and do you get paid a lot of money for this? They have no idea. So tell us, do you get paid any money for this at all for when you sign to do all that editing? And how many millions of dollars are you pulling in from this?
At least $0.00003 million.
So basically you're doing it for free, basically, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, given if you divide,
a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. You're doing it for free.
You get a bullet point on your CV.
Yeah.
To show
and how much do you get paid? As soon as you type that bullet point and hit save, how much goes into your bank account?
Nothing, but you get to say, I'm important.
Yeah.
Like
see, else, I'm trying to educate people about this. I mean, this is how professors think, is they sign away copyright to somebody else and they don't get paid for it. And then they go, see, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
I negotiated a contract with them where I get some residual pay. So as there'll be a percentage of it that comes to me, but it is so ridiculously low
Yeah.
That I'll probably literally never see a paycheck, because before
Sure,
I
of
ever
course.
see one, it has to pay for publishing costs.
Yeah, of course.
So the cost of printing the book is too much for,
Yeah.
for getting.
I know.
So yeah, you're right.
You get more if you self-publish it, but then people go, this is how people are. They go, well, you self-published it, so it doesn't have the same kind of authority. Yeah, it must not be good,
Right.
So you have some guy, other guy over there, and he says it's good, so it must be good. And they're
Right,
still not going to read the damn thing.
Right. And here's the snobbery that goes places. So I've got journal articles in peer-reviewed journals,
Right.
or you get a law review. Okay. And some people are like, oh, well, that's a law review. It's not peer-reviewed, which is funny, because then you go, oh, well, I've got this peer-reviewed one, which means only 2 people have read it. Now, journal articles get read a heck of a lot more. In fact, the last journal article, the one on same-sex marriage, was used in an amicus brief that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so it was referenced in the Supreme Court case, Obergefell v. Hodges, a landmark case. Even though we lost, I was at least referenced on it. Had I written a journal article, that thing would have been somewhere archived in the database somewhere. 2 people would have read it, people that basically were the peer reviewers, and then it would have never seen the light of day. This one goes all the way to the Supreme Court. So on one sense, you got the snobbery that goes, looks down their nose and says this is no peer review, but then on the other hand, you go, yeah, well, it's read. How's that?
Yeah.
On one hand, you can make some money. On the other hand, you can get a bullet point of some, it serves as some kind of artifact of remembrance, a sculpture of remembrance. I wrote something, it's kind of like how we establish pecking order in the academic world, I suppose.
So
how
weird.
long we have CVMV,
if students read these things, if they actually read these really arcane things that people write, I would say, okay, more power to you.
There's this view that if you write it, you should be compelled to write it, and not compelled for publish or perish reasons, but that you believe that the idea is important enough to get out.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea is important for the idea's sake, not for the sake of me getting tenure.
Right.
And when I say me getting tenure, I mean one getting tenure, because our position at where I am, we don't have tenure. So, I mean, there's nothing, I have no hoop I have to jump through to get tenure here. I just need to not get fired. That's a nice thing.
Do your job.
That's right. Man.
As long as they have an accurate view about what your job is.
That's right.
Because a lot of Christian colleges think your job is to avoid student complaints. That's what it's reduced to. And then you get some students in there, and then they don't want to be challenged academically. They don't want someone calling them out for their poor work.
Yeah, I worked at one of those for a time.
And with the regulations and stuff, you can always justify something. You can always, it's so highly regulated. It's even worse in K through 12. Yeah. You have the Title IX nonsense that Betsy DeVos put on pause, thank God, which look at the response that the Democrats had for Betsy DeVos. And they invented the Title IX nonsense. They invented all of that.
Yes.
And Title IX was classic violation of due process, classic textbook. Yes. I mean, you can't miss it. You can't miss it. Right. And the so-called civil rights movement people were totally against fixing that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been, it's kind of,
which means they're not really civil rights people. But
let me tell you something. I've been pretty blessed here at this college, because on more than one occasion, I have been called into the office to give an account for something I said to a sensitive student.
Yeah.
And
U.S. Marine. What a shocker. What a shocker.
Oh, I know. It's like, did you really say this in class? And I say, yes, I did. Yes, I did.
We like looking at you, Shannon. I love those glasses.
I can't see myself in a mirror anymore without them. I'm like, You know, I remember back in the day, I used to be like, perfect vision,
Well,
man.
Tenure, judges have tenure for good reason. Federal
Yes,
judges have lifetime tenure. And the reason is because
the motivation is great. In
well,
practice, I don't know if it is. The motivation is keep it from being political. Free from political
the
pressure.
motivation is to keep them from not being political, but from being, I don't think you can avoid being political.
Right.
From being unfair, from being
Persuadable.
biased toward a party.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If you're
Yeah, we'll go
always
with that. That's
because
sure,
you're
that's where I
always
went.
we have an adversarial legal system, right?
Yes.
So there's two sides. And the whole idea of a judge in our system is that the judge is not on either side. But is that really true? You know, when the federal prosecutors have 97% conviction rate, is that really true that the judge is not on either side? Well, separation of powers is, if you chip away at the separation of powers, then the judge is not really neutral, because after all, the judge works for the government, and the government is one of the sides in a prosecution, a criminal trial. Now, in a civil trial, that's not necessarily the case, right?
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of these don't even go to trial. Most of them don't go to trial. They're plead out. Because of the power the government has.
Absolutely, just the threat of the
But the judges, the way it was designed is that they want at least the possibility of a good person in there that can be fair, right? And you don't have that possibility if the judge is wondering, am I going to get fired over this? If so, then I need to be looking at my next gig, and oh, look, one of the parties in this case is hiring. That's a far worse situation. But you're in a similar situation as a professor, because you are now judging the students' work. Yes, you work for the university. Yes, you're part of the government, but you're and it's not exactly adversarial. It shouldn't be. Of course, the student is always biased toward a higher grade. I've never had a student complain. Actually, I did have one student who had Asperger's. He complained that I gave him too high of a grade. One student. I gave him an A minus. He said I should have gotten a B plus. See, these are the numbers.
Yeah.
He didn't complain. He came to me. He didn't complain officially. But how many people have gotten a B plus and they said they should have gotten an A minus and they made a federal case about it? I've lost count. I
did this once. I didn't like my grade. Okay, I went and I was like, I think this is an A paper. And I remember I saw a stack of papers, and on there, there was an A paper on the same topic. Turned it in, and I read through it, and I went, nope, that's an A paper. My paper's a B plus paper. When you write, you write. Thank you. I stand corrected. I am out of here. And I learned a lesson. I learned what an A paper looked like, and I knew mine was not.
Yeah.
And so it was a humbling but beneficial experience.
There should be a process for students to go through an experience like that. That's more thought out. That's more well thought out than it is now. I mean, you accidentally had that experience, right? It wasn't part of an orientation. And the orientations they do now are they have nothing to do with academic excellence. There should be an orientation just on academic excellence. Like, why are you here?
Right.
Why are you here? You know? And by the way, I'm going to be walking through, if I was the president of the college, I'm going to be walking through the library on Friday. I want to see how crowded it is. And I already know it's not going to be crowded. And I already know if it is crowded, it's probably raining outside, and everybody, I know what you're doing. You're on your devices, but why are you here? You know, really get them to focus on, why are you here? Have you ever studied logic? Have you ever studied logic? Do you know even what an argument is?
Yeah.
Can you read Latin? What can you do? You know, and of course, the engineering people are like, well, let me show you. Okay, well, I'm maybe not talking about you, but you know, like,
You see this building we're learning in?
I think we need to be more thoughtful. I remember having a similar feeling when I was getting B pluses on my papers in graduate school. I really wanted the A. And I remember I had a professor, Craig Blomberg of New Testament, and I don't think I ever asked him. I don't think I did. Maybe no.
Well, he's a false prophet anyway.
Well, you got to tell the story. Not really. We love.
He's not really a false prophet.
Not really, but
there's context.
Let me finish this. Let me finish this story. I think I figured out. I can't remember how I figured it out. I really got to think about this, but I figured out that my footnotes weren't very good. Somehow I figured this out, and I started using journals. I was in the library and I had the librarian. Can you imagine having talking to the librarian?
I know, heaven forbid.
And I talked to the librarian and I said, show me where these journals are. And he took me to where their journals, physical, they're objects you can hold in your hand. And I was like, oh, this is New Testament studies. Oh, it goes all the way back. And oh, this is Cambridge, this and that, and this is Bibliotheca Sacra, and this. And I started popping in, reading some of these journal articles that had to do with my topic and going deeper and then citing those in my footnotes. Bam. Yeah. And I cracked the code, but it took work on my part. But I was in the military. I was 18 years old, a week out of high school. I was in boot camp. I was getting yelled at and screamed at and being called a mule-ass bitch. And I had to get my crap together to
that's actually
I'm not saying I do have my crap together. Obviously I don't, but I as opposed to my other high schoolers that were smoking pot and getting high and staying up till 3 a.m. over the summer, I was up at 3 a.m. all right in San Diego. And the Marines across the fence were definitely up because I could hear them. And they never shut up. They were constantly marching and yelling and anyway. But yeah, I mean, I had a different attitude. I was like, how do I figure this out? It's not me. I was confident that it wasn't that he hated me. Why would he hate me?
Right.
I mean, if you got a chip on your shoulder and you constantly think people hate me, I've heard that people hate me because of because I have a darker skin tan or whatever, or because my last name is this, or my hair is frazzled or whatever. And then you're not going to ever go through that process of, wait, hold on, let me really take a close look, because it's always going to be somebody else's fault. It's always going to be the system's fault. It's not going to be my fault.
Yeah, it doesn't leave room for personal growth. You can't do anything. Just want to let you know, if I pop out of you here, it's because my thing here is losing batteries pretty badly.
All right. Well, you want to wrap this up? Let's
I want to keep going. I'm having a great time, but I just want to let you know that it could die at any second.
Okay.
And the last time it went down, it said, this thing is out of batteries, got like 3% left. So
okay.
So but
we want to have you on a lot. So
man, I like
it last time.
Oh, very good one.
Curtis, I'm loving your background. That's awesome.
That's not virtual, by the way. That's a snippet of my own personal library.
Those are real books.
That's right. They're real. I can actually open, I can open it up and
Curtis is in Texas too.
Pull out the
that's awesome. That's a good thing. Well, welcome home, and one day we'll get you out here.
I have to say too, when you pulled that other one, I was like, I have that, but I didn't want to get up to.
Let me tell you, that thing was so valuable when I first started taking philosophy. And
absolutely.
I mean, every word in every sentence there'd be a word I'd have to look up in that dictionary. Yeah. And I'd have to read a whole article on one word.
On a word.
And
that's right.
Like, oh my God, man, this is like, I'm never going to get through this.
That's how it's done though. It's done it's done push up by push up.
This is what is
no way to get around
writing. Yeah, I
That's
remember
right.
thinking,
That's
you know,
right.
I remember having a discussion with Guyvit. We all love Guyvit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Doug
Yeah.
Guyvit.
Yeah.
He is a
He-
distinguished professor of
Oh,
philosophy.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
He was the one that introduced me to the idea of what you just said. Like, no, how you write concisely is you
Oh, yeah.
understand the entire work
Uh-huh.
behind why we have that word.
Yes.
Whoa, it blew my mind. But that's what I did. I had to read everything.
We got to have an episode just on the Guyvit Précis.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
If
you know, you know.
That's right. I've got some stories about that one.
I didn't leave your podcast. I am looking for.
We like looking at your butt, Shannon.
Thank you. Well, you know, I do a lot of work, but
You had some work done on it.
yeah, got those implants finally. Look at here, let's see if we can find the. I'm trying to get this
I
thing.
see something. Oh, there
there
it
we
is.
go.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Nice.
What is that?
That's
Oh,
epistemology.
that's awesome.
That's my epistemology course pack from 2000 from our Doug Guyvit. And I
Doug
still
would be
use
proud
it
right now.
when I teach my classes on epistemology, whenever I get an opportunity, whether it be here or the University of St. Thomas, mostly there, because I'm in government here. But that I still will go back and make reference to that and show my students. This is one thing going back to students, you know, I ask these students, I go, how many of you keep your books? Now, of course, books are now online and they rent books now.
Yeah.
And so it's like
crazy.
you can't keep your own. That library you have behind you is representative of your education, of things that you accumulated. And
Idiots.
I mean, I still have Mounce's Greek on my shelf, the Brown Driver Bridge.
Sure.
Yep.
And Art Bauer and Gingrich, and I have them in hard copies. There you go. Why? Because they're part of, you know, but you talk to students nowadays and they're like, they can't even sell their books. They're just throwing them away. Some of them are like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, because they don't read. They don't read.
They didn't read in the first place.
They're not curious. That's the problem. They're curious. They're not curious.
You know, it's
I was insatiably curious.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the reason here, because we valued our discipline for the discipline's sake.
Mhm.
Okay. And we didn't value it just to get a job or just to get a piece of paper.
Right.
Okay. And some of I go, are you here to get an education or are you here to get a degree? And I make a distinction. One is a piece of paper. One is what that paper is supposed to represent.
That's right.
And unfortunately, most of them will, if they're honest, will admit they're there for the degree more than they're there for the education.
Yeah.
But there are curious people, and those are the people who belong here.
That's true.
But of course,
there always are some. Yes, that's true.
Now, don't get me wrong. Our job to mine out the cave to find that gem means we're going to have to be getting rid of a lot of rocks or going through a lot of rocks to get to those gems. And if it weren't for those rocks that we have to mine through, we wouldn't have a job. There's just not enough gems. There's too many miners and not enough gems.
Mhm.
And if it were all gems, I mean, if none of the uncurious people even went to school, we wouldn't have work. You know, we'd be students, we'd get our degree and go. We wouldn't be professors, we'd be in another field, be highly educated, and we'd still be curious, but we'd be practitioners of something else. Yeah, well, probably still are anyway.
Shannon, I think it'd be a cool topic for the future to have you on as someone who's taken epistemology and then gone and studied into government and other areas, and what that did for you having that background in epistemology.
Man,
because I've definitely got theories about that. Oh no, he's gone.
Oh, I think his phone, his computer died.
He died. Okay. Well, I'm glad he gave us the heads up on that.
But that would be a great topic. And I could see he got what you were asking.
That's right.
That would be great.
Well, I'm going to cut this off right here,
You bet.
and I'm just going to pause it so we can stay on, you and me.
Okay.
Okay. See you next time.